Good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome to our discussion of empowering the future blockchain education and awareness. We are here today to explore how blockchain education is shaping our future innovators, focusing on curriculum development, policy framework, and emerging technologies. I am Sebonkile Thaba, your moderator for the session. I am a lecturer in supply chain management at University of Johannesburg, where I integrate blockchain solutions into logistics education while mentoring entrepreneurial startups. We are privileged to have an incredible panel of experts with us today. I will now invite each of them to briefly introduce themselves. I will start with Prof. Nwulu, followed by Anushka and Carel.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Thaba. My name is Nnamdi. I'm a professor of sustainable psychophysical engineering systems at the University of Johannesburg, and also the South Africa Switzerland Bilateral chairholder in blockchain technology. Very briefly, my research focus is around cyber-physical technologies and its nexus with emerging technologies, right? And then blockchain happens to be our current focus, our current key focus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thaba. Hi, everyone. So my name is Anushka Soma-Patel. I used to work for IOHK, which is the development team for the Cardano blockchain. So we've just gone through most of the development of a self-sovereign identity protocol called Atala Prism, and this was donated to Hyperledger Foundation as Hyperledger Identus. That's the name of the project if you need to look it up. You know, I have a background in IT, and that helped me to be very curious about blockchain. I then went on to do my MBA, and I realized that it's important for tech people to understand how to get their businesses or their projects into the market. I subsequently did a course at Carnegie Mellon University on product management to learn exactly, you know, what's the frameworks I could use to help people to do that. I'm currently practicing as an independent consultant, but my superpower is connecting people to achieve what they want to achieve. Because I know all of you sitting here are not sitting here for no reason at all. You're sitting here for a reason. You have a vision. There's something you want to bring about. And I absolutely love making sure that I can connect people to bring those visions of yours to life. So yeah, that's me, Anushka.
Hi everyone, my name is Carel. I'm a research group leader for distributed ledger technology or blockchain at the CSIR. A bit of history. I was originally a chemical engineer turned blockchain engineer in 2016. I just found it fascinating. We combined a number of my interests, which was mathematics, energy, money in general, cryptography, and so on. So, you know, since that day in 2016 when I discovered it, I've never taken a day off. Just loving it, and over the years been involved in many different things. Started with training, trade corporates, engineers, banks, central banks all around the world, and then later on moved on to product development, worked with developers, built trading bots, built payment integrations, built everything under the sun. And then nowadays leading a team of blockchain engineers at the CSIR, where we build chain intelligence, on-chain intelligence products for compliance. We build payment technologies, doing a wide range of R&D of where blockchain can be used in the industry.
Thank you very much, our panelists. So to begin our discussion, looking at the blockchain education globally, what strategies have proven most effective in balancing technical rigor with broader accessibility? What specific improvements could make blockchain knowledge more impactful across different sectors? Let's start with Prof. Nwulu with the response. Each panelists have 1 to 2 minutes to respond to this question. We'll get to Carel, then Anushka.
Thanks again, Dr. Thaba. I think I'd like to start by stating that technical rigor should not be a barrier to making blockchain education more accessible. Essentially, it should just be the foundation, because you would want, when you're training folks, for them to have the right capacity, to have the right skill set in the technology, that's blockchain technology. So I think it's very important to state that. And then I would like to touch on a few concepts that folks are using globally, but I'll start first with what we are using at the South African Switzerland Research Chair in Blockchain Technology at UJ. So what we have done, and this is the third year running now, is we have set up something called a demystifying blockchain bootcamp. Emphasis on the word demystifying, in a sense, to simplify what are otherwise complex topics, right, in the blockchain domain, and make it simple so that folks that are just coming into that field can grasp them, right? We have done these through a host of fora. Typically, we have focused boot camps that span a couple of days, right? And then during those boot camps, you have structured training sessions, and then you also have consultation sessions, typically online in the evening, where folks that are perhaps struggling with certain aspects can get guidance, right? And then we've also integrated a host of intersection with industry players. So typically we have several industry players that come in that speak to several salient and key aspects, and then people are able to now really and truly merge the theory to the practical. And I think that chasm, that movement from the theory to the practical, is also quite key. What we have also seen is that showing the students practical applications, right, also aids them in their learning. There seems to be a prevalence of blockchain applications in the fintech space, around financial inclusion and all of that. But what we have seen work is to expand that horizon, right? Away, not fintech is important and it's great, and blockchain is doing a lot of stuff there. But then we also look at its interaction with IoT, robotics, and then now we've discovered that engineering students are able to appreciate the technology from that perspective. And then when you talk about it talk about blockchain technology as it's integrated in the supply chain, then folks in the business or in the management disciplines are now able to appreciate the technology better. And then talking about blockchain, focusing on smart contracts, folks in computer science, again, can now appreciate the concepts from blockchain technology. So again, it's quite key. You need to contextualize and look for application areas that the folks that you're speaking to can relate with, right? And then we have also engaged in activities to also integrate the technology into the structured curricula, right? And now academia, sometimes progress is quite slow in academia, right? And then, which is a challenge for blockchain technology, which is a fast-moving technology. So what we've done is now that we've been able to look for courses where they leverage a lot on project-based learning. That way you are able to use the discretion of the lecturer, and then blockchain aligned projects can be, given to the students again, and not aids their learning, right? And then it's a principle called active learning. So active learning mixed with project-based learning is deployed in that regard. And then there are, currently we are also working on certain strategies, certain programs, having a master's in blockchain technology at the university. That would be a multidisciplinary project and would get a lot of students from the sciences, from the engineering disciplines and those that are interested in the entrepreneurial or the management perspectives. So I think what is key is to, use technical rigor, but make it accessible, make the concept accessible to students or practitioners through what they understand, right? And then move them from there to much more structured programs so that learning is actually effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, for the intensive response on the question. I'll now hand over to Carel.
Thanks. I have a very long answer on this, but I'm going to reserve it for a bit later because I will tell you a bit about what happens out there in the wild and some of the things that I've come across. The short answer is that blockchain technology is by far the most mature in its application in finance. And any other application of blockchain technology is very, very immature. And it's extremely early days. And the chances of failure is very, very, very high. But in its application in finance, that's a bit different because the technology is mature and it's ready to be used. And the simplest and the best way to educate corporate students, engineers about this is to build something. It's just to do a POC, build a proof of concept, look where the vulnerabilities are. There's no better way to learn something. Now, of course, it's difficult to find legitimate information online, the legitimate courses that you can take. So education remains a massive challenge. And the easiest way to overcome that barrier is to experiment.
Thank you very much, Carel, for the answer. And I'll go straight to Anushka.
Okay, so, absolutely what both our gentlemen here are saying is you got to play with the tech to understand it a little better. You can read all the white papers and all the theory till you blue in the face. But for me, my major learning curve came in when I kind of understood the high-level concepts and then delved into actually doing. And I feel that the doing is really effective. However, I also feel that in order to work towards widespread use of this technology, the end users of the products and services we build in this room, they're not going to worry about how the tech works or anything like that. They're going to worry about, does it cost me less and is it easy enough to use? So as long as we're putting solutions into the hands of people and it's easy enough for them to use, I don't think that the majority of the population needs to be trained on what blockchain is and, what the technology layer does. However, because we're working with new technology, learning so much, and as Carel says, we're moving more from the finance use cases into other use cases, and I'm very deep in the identity use cases. In this space, we needed to know the theory. We needed to test if the tech actually existed, and in 2018, very little tech existed. I'm currently part of something called a Global Acceptance Network. I'm an ambassador for it for South Africa and Africa. And we're still working on the final layer of governance and the thin layer of tech that's needed to enable trusted digital identity information exchange. And I feel like by early next year, once that is done, we'll then be able to say, okay, techies, these are the standards, go out, create your solutions, and let's start, fast-tracking the adoption of the solutions that come out of the space. So it's still early days on the identity side, even though some protocols like your currency protocols have been around for long. So I really totally agree that, number one, the conceptual layer is important and the conceptual understanding is important. And number two, getting the techies in to build stuff, getting the dreamers to dream up the amazing products that they want to bring about with the new tech, making sure we have enough builders. So I think that's where the tech education is mostly needed, because nobody wants to be building solutions when there aren't enough people to look after it. And then lastly, being able to spread the word on those products and services so that they can be widely adopted.
Thank you very much, Anushka. I do believe that we are actually on the right path. Our students are non-technical students doing diploma in supply chain management, and through the UJ blockchain boot camps, they manage to work through problems that are solving socio-economic challenges within their area of residence. And they were, through blockchain, UJ blockchain, they also managed to develop apps which can be very commercialized. So it is very important to realize that as the conceptualization and curriculum development is on the way, the universities and other academic areas are doing their level best to formalize blockchain education. Thank you very much, our panelists. And I will get to our second round of questions. And in the second round of questions, I will be specific in each of your expertise. I will start with you, Anushka. So your question is, as the lead writer of the Nnamdi blockchain report, how do you envision blockchain transforming digital identity frameworks across Africa? What are the key challenges and opportunities in this space?
Thanks for this question, Dr. Thaba. I have, the latest example I have here is I have mentees that reached out to me on LinkedIn. And there's about 5 of them from Nigeria. And it is really sad to hear how, they've applied for funding and applied for jobs. And then there's a stereotyped response that comes back, and they don't necessarily land the jobs or get the funding. And I feel that digital identity, the new digital identity frameworks will actually help overcome these entrenched stereotypes and biases that may exist in processes. And they exist in all kinds of processes, right? If you're going for a loan or if you're applying to an educational institute, there's different biases that are applied at face value. So the concept of self-sovereign identity brings with it something called verifiable credentials. In the early days of digital identity and blockchain-based identity, people assumed it would work like NFTs and there'll be a whole lot of your information put on the blockchain. But no, your personal information should not be put on the blockchain. So if solutions are doing that, please ask them to use verifiable credentials instead. And so with the onset of verifiable credentials, the concept of selective disclosure, so I can selectively disclose certain pieces of information, or I could do a zero knowledge proof. So I could answer yes or no to certain questions without disclosing my actual information. So I feel like these concepts of verifiable credentials, selective disclosure, and zero knowledge proofs will actually help us overcome a lot of the biases in the world as we transact in the digital world. And then, like I mentioned before, because of the overarching trust protocols that we're busy working on at the moment, those will help us embed trust into ecosystems and across ecosystems, so that people can work. So my mentees in Nigeria could work for an American company, hopefully without so much of friction and bias put into the process. And I think when it comes to the challenges and opportunities that this opens up, I feel like there's a huge move towards automating compliance using this kind of technology, and that's something I would look into next year a little bit more. And once we can automate compliance, I feel like the opportunity it opens up is for us to streamline all of the processes and services that we build. If anybody wants to discuss this further, I am around until the end of the day.
Thank you very much, Anne. I will get to Carel, and your question is, how can we better educate both regulators and innovators to create a balanced blockchain policies in South Africa? What role should industry play in this education?
Oh, okay. I think let me just shine a different angle on this. A couple of years ago, I was involved in an audit of a major bank in the Eurozone, which implemented a blockchain solution. And I came as a technical expert to that audit, having also had lots of experience in dealing with corporates and decision makers at that time, I had to look at their blockchain implementation and do a bunch of checks and balances on it. And what I found was they implemented the private permissioned EVM fork, for example, in their bank, and specifically to increase efficiencies in settling funds, like trades of funds. Like they have various stakeholders, many stakeholders, quite a complex process in buying and selling of these funds and how it's settled. And they've already implemented that, remember, and ready to launch it when I came in. And that was, you know, a due diligence check at the end. It wasn't launched yet, but I found that in this process, a part of this settlement process was that one stakeholder had to fax confirmation of a trade to another stakeholder. All right, and that needs to then make its way on chain somehow, so that it can be implemented in smart contracts, etc., etc. And unfortunately, I had to tell them that your entire blockchain implementation is flawed, because that is the weakest link. Your blockchain implementation is only as strong as your weakest link. And that oracle there is terrible. You first have to get rid of the fax machine before you can implement a blockchain, right? And unfortunately, I've seen this now repeatedly, many times, and that a corporate organization like that think that the blockchain can solve their problems. It's like a silver bullet. But in actual fact, they first need to go through a digitization process before they can even start thinking about blockchain. And once they went through the digitization process, in many cases, their problems are solved. And then a blockchain is not even necessary. So when it comes to education on that level, I just highly encourage to very, very first of all understand like the basic components of a blockchain, where it is good, where it is bad, what its scope is, because in many cases you'll find its scope is actually much, much smaller than you initially thought. You thought it's like very broad, and then you find that it's super small. But there where it applies, it does magic. It's like, it's amazing technology. But don't try and apply it outside of its scope, because then it's terrible technology. In fact, it will make your process much, much worse. And I think that, you know, again, maybe I'm a bit more practical on this point, but that is, in terms of regulators and innovators, that's usually the message I try to bring, at least, is from a technical engineering point of view. How do you think about feasibility, for example? Now, our regulators, they are in a difficult spot, because they need to catalyze the industry as well as dance to the tune of these global watchdogs, the FATF, the World Bank, the IMF. And our regulators kind of needs to balance the two and make sure that they talk to industry and engage with all of these stakeholders. And as difficult as that is, I think they're doing a fairly good job.
Thank you very much, Carel, for the response. I'll go to Prof. Nwulu. Your question is, as blockchain technologies evolve, how can university create adaptable curricula that serves both specialized blockchain courses and broader academic program?
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's a very good question, right? Because in most instances, higher education institutions are playing catch-up with regards to most of the emerging technologies. Industry seems to be far ahead in some cases in terms of the innovations, right? So I think what needs to happen is, from a higher education perspective, we need to streamline, in a sense, the process of changing curricula, because as it currently stands, it's a very long and laborious process. It has to go through various stakeholders, right? That takes time, all right? You probably would need, at least, if you're quite fast, about 2 years, you know, to get a program, right, approved by the relevant stakeholders, right? So I think that needs to change. That process needs to be streamlined and needs to be faster, right? But my view is that there are always workarounds, right? And that's one of the things we have been doing, because we can't wait for that system to change and say we're not going to teach our our students about blockchain technologies or other allied emerging technologies. And then what we have done, like I did mention in my prior response, is to look out for, in various disciplines, and then we've seen now that project-based learning does work quite well, right? Look out for courses in the engineering disciplines, in the Faculty of Science disciplines, computer science, in the business and management disciplines, where you could integrate blockchain technology as some form of a project, right, as some form of a deliverable within the within that project, right? Now that might give the perception that blockchain technology is an add-on, but depending on how it is conceptualized, right, and then depending on also on how it is integrated with other allied technologies, for instance, blockchain and AI, blockchain and IoT sensors, for instance, where blockchain serves as just a record-keeping system, it can actually provide much value, right? I give an instance, right? In the engineering discipline, we have a project where that looks at a smart food processing facility, and Dr. Thaba also aware of this project. Now that looks at IoT sensors can get information in and around water quality parameters, food processing parameters, right? And that information can be recorded on the blockchain, effectively eliminating the human element or the other technology elements, the problems of which Carel has mentioned, right? And then once those records are put on the blockchain, right, other allied food safety regulations as required can also be assessed, right? What would happen at the end of the day is there will now be increased consumer confidence in the way and manner food is produced within that smart controlled environment, right? And then this idea can also be extended at other areas within the agri-food supply chain, right? And we've done something like this at the University of Johannesburg. It's called Food Trolley. And then currently this blockchain-powered prototype is currently being used for the distribution of food parcels, right, amongst needy students at the university, right? It goes all through from where the food is sourced from the various donors that donate food to the university, and then it also helps food to identify the students, and the whole process is automated such that that gap is actually the gap that usually existed where it was a manual process and you would often miss students that needed that food, right? That has been eliminated. So those kinds of projects, right, have the ability to equip students with the prerequisite knowledge, right, and at the same time solve significant societal problems. Students see the impactful nature or the transformative nature of the technology, and then it also increases their learning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. One thing about being in academia, you are always faced with humble beginnings. As Anushka and Carel are now seeing the far future of blockchain education and seeing the element of digitalization. We are sitting where every day we need to teach those basic concepts, but at the same time making sure that we are touching on research in terms of publication, we are touching on community engagement, and we are touching on teaching our students. We are waiting for our curriculum to be approved by the higher levels up, but at the same time still giving in those education. So thank you very much, Prof, and the panelists for your contribution in this question. Our third round of questions, which is actually our last. Now let's dive into some advanced topics. I will ask each of you to reflect on broader themes of the intersection of blockchain and other emerging technologies. Carel, I'll start with you. Based on your work in blockchain protocol development and CSIR research, what emerging technical challenges should blockchain education prepare for the next 5 years?
Oh, yeah, it's been the same for the last 10, and it's going to be the same for the next 10. And that is, I think, one of the biggest problems with blockchain technology in its application anywhere. And I'm just going to stick to the theme that I mentioned earlier, is like, how do you get real world data on chain? Like, that is just, sorry for the technical terms there, but it's really something that's on top of my mind always. Is like, how do you get real world data on chain if you want to apply blockchain to anything? Even finance, you know, if you have a robust and accurate data source, then you can do cool stuff with it. You can decentralize, and you can remove the trust, and you can create amazing applications with smart contracts and so on. But if you're gonna have someone add this data, human element there, and you don't have a very robust and secure external data feed, then unfortunately your whole application falls flat. I'll give you another example. Walmart decided to tokenize their lettuce a few years ago, and you know, it was fantastic. I even tried to use it in the US. Is that they tokenized their lettuce, and they did this whole farm to fork thing. Many of you might have heard about that. Where blockchain can be used in supply chain to like check temperatures and, you know, the cold chain and all of that. And they did that, and the lettuce was stacked there on a shelf. And how each lettuce head was identified was through a sticker with a QR code. And you can go and you can scan the sticker with the QR code, and then you go to the Ethereum blockchain fancy, and you can see like the entire history of the lettuce set from the time it was harvested until it's on the shelf. Sounds fantastic, right? Okay, but here's the thing. What if I take that sticker and I put it on another lettuce set? What happens now? Now someone comes, he scans the other lettuce set, the old one, the one that was not taken care of, and he looks at the blockchain and he sees, but there's a nice healthy cold chain there. You see why that cannot work. I see why that the weakest link makes your application terrible, because now you have immutable data on the blockchain, data that cannot be reversed, data that's supposed to be super secure and accurate. But you're looking at the wrong letter set, because that QR code was used as a sticker, and that's the way that you got your real world data into the blockchain. You see that that's the weakest link, and unfortunately hundreds of millions of dollars of R&D work spent onto that is all in vain. And that's why I think when we speak about the challenge of blockchain technology and what it would be in the next 5 years, it's exactly the same as it's always been. How do we find secure real-world data sources that cannot be manipulated and put that on chain?
Thank you very much, Carel. You are actually making me think of all the codes that are in our qualifications. To Prof. Nwulu, what emerging blockchain applications show the most promise for addressing real-world sustainability challenges? How should a university prioritize this in research?
Okay, thanks, Dr. Thaba. So we are all aware that the SDG goals, we are just 6 years shy of the deadline for when we should have achieved most of those goals, right? And so blockchain technology, in conjunction with other emerging technologies, can play a role in addressing some of those challenges, right? If you think about simple issues like monitoring and evaluation, right, of issues around carbon emissions, right, quantifying all of that, issues around even food safety, right, all those elements are areas that require transparency, right? And then I think transparency is the key selling point, just like efficiency and speed is the key selling point for artificial intelligence. Transparency is the key selling point for blockchain technology. So we currently have a master's student that is currently working on blockchain for quantifying carbon emissions, right, in conjunction with IoT, essentially eliminating all of the human element in that process that is also prone to manipulation and all of that. So we feel now that blockchain technology can play a role in that space, right? Areas around water quality parameters, right? And then the sampling of some of these wastewater or water in the water distribution network and other areas, right? Areas that there's a tendency to forge the numbers, right? You have not necessarily bad actors, but actors that can sometimes be careless, right? Blockchain can really play a role in that. I think I mentioned the monitoring and evaluating frameworks for assessing these goals, right? And then ensuring that several countries are on the right path with regards to their meeting these goals. So universities have a role to play in it. I did mention now that universities sometimes struggle with the technical aspect, right? But now this technology also has socio-economic dynamics, right? For instance, there are issues around technology adoption. There are issues around societal impact of some of the technologies in other concepts and scalability issues. So these are all areas that I feel that universities should prioritize, in addition, of course, to the technical aspects.
Thank you very much, Prof. The last question will be for Anushka. With your work in self-root identity, solution and decentralization trust infrastructure, how can the SSI solution be integrated into blockchain education to address real-world privacy and security challenges?
So I think I'd stick to my previous answer in terms of the three concepts: verifiable credentials, selective disclosure, and zero-knowledge proofs. I think that the way in which self-sovereign identity protocols are developed, the idea is that the data should not be able to be manipulated. However, I'm sure if we threw the problem at Carel, he will say, where's the weakest link for this? Oh, it's the person putting the data in. So they can still issue fraudulent certificates. However, I did speak to one of our attendees here, and they actually make sure that the person doing the course, gets a selfie taken and is the one writing the exam. So that then adds more layers of ensuring that there is proof that the person actually finished it. I also think that self-sovereign identity solutions could help us get rid of certain types of fraud that may exist. And we'll have to make sure that we mitigate the other risks as well in those processes.
Thank you very much to all the program directors on our side. I was going to add your final reflection, but she will do it on our behalf. Thank you very much, friends.
Okay. Thank you very much.